Hello, and welcome back to Anthony Parshall's YouTube channel. Um, do we want to talk about enlightenment? No, we want me to play guitar. I think I'm going to play guitar rather than speak. Okay, folks, so this one goes out to who? Who does this one go out to? This one goes out to the great psychiatrist in the sky. It's called Jazz for the Great Psychiatrist in the Sky, and I'll just improvise it. Well, enough of that. But we're gonna keep recording, and that's a musical interlude from my recording session here. So, what would we all like to talk about today? Here we are in the classroom of yes, no. Sometimes I think I maybe might I am, but I have no idea. So I don't know how many. We could talk about that. The whole concept, the whole connection between the idea of being a Buddha and being a seeker. Generally, you would think a Buddha is the highest, the most highly realized of all beings. So then, how could there be an enlightenment that's not full Buddhahood, right? Well, um, that's because you get. Adyashanti says it well. He says they get there and they put up their tent, and they start teaching. Um, the question you might ask, and this is actually a good question, is why does the Buddha look deeper, and why does the Buddha have to look deeper? Because on the spiritual path, there's nothing not have to. If you're involved in Vajrayana Buddhism, there's no have to. It's just you either do one thing or you do another thing, and you hope for the best outcome. So you have the society, the police state that we live in called the United States of America, which I'm apparently not allowed to say. Um, and yeah, so let's talk about enlightenment rather than social phobia or whatever it is. So we would think that if we became enlightened, we would be beyond the realm of suffering, of problems, of having psychological hang-ups or whatever. And we would not suffer. I think that's the main thing that we think. We think if I was enlightened, I wouldn't suffer. And not only that, I'd be really happy all the time. And then you have the folks saying, "Well, there's nobody to be happy. There's nobody there to be happy." And then they talk about awareness as an experiencer. Enlightenment itself is merely a point of view. It's the point of view that gets you to go beyond ego. There's nothing really revelatory about this enlightenment and experiencing awareness. It's pleasant because you realize that you've gotten to where you wanted to go. So at this point I can either say, well, Brahma gives you a sheet of paper that says you're enlightened or you won the lottery, right? Excuse me. Yeah, it's probably made up by the Hindu god Brahma, who says, well, if you pass all these tests, then I guess I'll let you go beyond your ego. I'm being somewhat facetious, but Um, ego death or egolessness, then, right? Everybody wonders about that. Well, ego is actually that's been a very interesting topic for me. Is ego because I not because of my relationship with my ego, but because I I'm interested in psychology. I have a deep interest in psychology. So when you talk about ego, I want to know precisely what that is. You know, well, ego is it's using you to make a movie. You know, and it could where does it come from? It could be alien glue injected in your head, couldn't it? It could be. In Buddhism, they say no one knows where ego comes from. It's making a movie. It's using your body to make a movie. That's what ego does. Um, so if you want to extrapolate from that question and say, well, who is making this movie? Um, I would probably say it's kind of pointless to speculate. Um, then another question, of course, is are the Buddha apparently the final teaching of the Buddha, right before he entered parinirvana or took his parinirvana, he said to his disciples, "There's no such thing as a separate self or a separate ego." So ego. When you're involved in making the movie that is controlled by ego, as a sort of software program in your head, so that you will make this movie and you will not deviate from it. Yeah, you can't deviate from it. But once you get beyond the ego, that whole notion of being in a movie disappears. I mean, it's not like you couldn't still be in a movie, but you're not in the movie that they're not in this movie. You're not in ego's movie. They're not in the movie that say there's some god of ego who is Lord is in control of everybody who has an ego. That's the one who's making the ego movie. So while that's going on, there's really nothing you can do about it. And that's why the point of view of enlightenment is so important, because the point of view of enlightenment takes you eventually beyond. It takes you to ego death, egolessness, transcending your ego, whatever it is. Seeing through the illusion of ego, well, one of those anyway, and you just realize that there's more to what's going on in your head than the ego. Whereas before it seemed like everything. So, yeah, our id and superego. Yeah, id and superego are actually functions of the ego. I would say I would hold that at the moment anyway. That id and superego are functions of the ego. Yeah. So then you ask me what happens to id and superego once you become egoless. Well, you still have your instinctual drives, and you still have your sense of control, and I don't know, whatever. I guess thank you for listening to this video.